Hello and welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Energy Podcast. And on this week's episode, we're going to be recapping a pretty massive tournament weekend. There were four major tournaments across the globe this past weekend. So we'll talk about some of the results from those events. There's a pretty big new card that was revealed from Black Bolt and White Flare coming out very, very soon. We'll kind of give our thoughts on that. And then we, of course, have Guess That Flavor Text, everyone's favorite segment of the podcast. I'm going to wrap up this week by talking about this coming weekend's Portland Regional Championships, where both Azul and I will be in attendance. Azul will be playing. I will be there casting. Looking forward to yet another great tournament weekend. And then, of course, we are going to wrap things up over on our bonus episode, exclusive weekly to our YouTube channel members and Spotify subscribers. I finally did not say that it was for our Patreon supporters. My name is Chip Ritchie, and I'm joined here, as always, by my friend and co-host, Azul GG. What's up, Azul? How we doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good, Chip. Had a another long weekend of watch partying. Watched the Utrecht regional championships, and then
Special event, buddy.
actually, I was corrected in my chat. I think it's called the special championships
It
now.
is
Is that
special championships.
special
Yeah.
championships?
Yeah.
Yeah, get on that, Robin. Got to switch that the name over. But yeah, the Utrecht special championships, and then also the Thailand Masterball League as well. And no stream for Santiago or Melbourne, unfortunately. I could have been doing like a 48-hour stream potentially if those had streams
Yeah, right,
with
dude. You barely
them.
made it. How many
Well, no, I'm
hours
just
until?
saying I watched everything except everything up to the first game of the finals for Utrecht, and then I was falling asleep in my chair, so I tapped out after the first game of the finals of Utrecht. But I watched everything else. Um, up to that point, day 1, day 2, and then the Masterball League, excuse me, in Thailand. But it was another one of those weekends where it felt pretty bad to not have the stream for, specifically Melbourne. Brent versus Daichi in top 4 would have been a pretty cool match to watch. So, once again, feels kinda bad that we're missing out on
Daichi also played
some
against Henry
matches.
Brand on the winning end.
Yeah. I think actually also played against Natalie as well at some point, which is like a rematch from the last OCIC, I believe.
The Australian
Um
gauntlet right there.
Yeah, so those would have been some pretty cool matches to see. Especially we don't get to see much of the Japanese players, but there's quite a few. There's like 32 of them, I think, that were over in Melbourne. So would have been cool to see some of the Japanese players play, especially like Daichi specifically making it into cut. I think there's 3 Japanese players in cut overall, but we'll talk about that more in a little bit. So that kind of stunk. I will say with that though, watching did the watch parties over the weekend with that. There was apparently some, I don't know, what do you call it, grassroots, whatever, community streams for I think Go and VGC in Melbourne. So if this is the same case next season, I've already said this about some of the Latin American events. I'm personally going to try and make my way over to Australia to stream the events if the TOs will let me get the equipment put together because we're missing so much good action over there. I don't mind putting it on myself to make it happen because there definitely is precedent for some community streams to be ran at these Australian tournaments. The last couple of them have had a mix of VGC and Go streams, but no TCG stream. I don't know if that's being blocked by the TOs or if just no one in the community has like offered. So I'm gonna put my hat in the ring or whatever the quote is for next season, possibly if it's not already something that is taken on officially. So, but yeah, a lot of good Pokemon watch partying over the weekend. That was my week. What about you, Chip? You have a pretty exciting week.
I did. Yeah. We had a new member of the family this week. Richie, baby boy number 2, was born, I guess, at the end of last week on Thursday, which has been fun and sweet, and got to bring home another baby. And yeah, wife's doing great. The baby's doing great. Samuel is doing great as a big brother. He was like so excited. We got to come visit in the hospital, and he walked in the room. And a lot of like toddlers, we've seen like videos and stuff people have taken over the years of like where they come into the hospital room and they're like more excited to see mom because they haven't seen mom for a couple days, right? But he walked in and immediately was like, "Where's baby brother? Where is he? Like, I must find him." But yeah, it was super cool. And yeah, it's been a fun experience. Remember it kind of like having to relearn all the things from the first time around that were so long ago and such a blur. Um, but yeah, it's been good. Little sleep happening over here these last few nights, but that's okay. It's part of it. And each night has gotten better for baby and Brooke. So yeah, everyone's doing great, and it's yeah, very exciting stuff for sure.
Oh, that's good. It's great to hear everything went well. I'm
Someone in the
excited to
replies over here on Twitter did say that I should have named my son Azul, and I did not appreciate that one.
I'm excited to meet him for sure. Um, Especially to see the interactions between him and Samuel. I'm sure Samuel's gonna be a great older brother for sure.
Yeah, he's excited about it right now for sure, which is fun. But yeah, other than that, yeah, we got Portland coming up this weekend. Whenever I had said I could work Portland, I did think that the baby would be like probably closer to a month old as opposed to a week old because Brooke blew past her due date by a week, so he overcooked a little bit, and so he's going to be just a week old. But we got a good support system. Brooke's feeling good, and I would obviously like make adjustments if I had to if things weren't going good here. But we got family coming to stay and help out and stuff, so I feel good about still being able to go and do what we do over in Portland. I'm very much looking forward to it for sure. And then also another thing to look forward to that I saw, I wanted to share this too. Totally complete pivot change of topic here. Um, but it was they released some of the side events information for NAIC this year, and it seems like there's a bunch of stuff happening, which I guess shouldn't be too big of a surprise. There's a expanded event on Saturday, like and side events here that are happening at NAIC. It's a little bit different. They hold a little bit more weight than like the type of events that happen at regionals because the regionals are put on by a tournament organizer. NAIC is put on by the Pokemon Company International, right? Like they are the ones like directly deciding kind of what happens for all these side events and also the main event and all that stuff. So an expanded Saturday side event, which I think some people were excited about. But what I was really excited to see is that there is going to be an officially sanctioned retro tournament happening on Sunday at NAIC at 11 a.m. on Sunday. 2010 World Championships format will be played for an event, which is so cool to see.
Yeah, actually, I was contemplating, and might still do it because I think my flight leaves like Sunday morning. I'm contemplating like changing my flight to potentially play in that. I mean, ideally, I'll be in the finals, in which case I would also have to change my flight. But it would be cool to kind of play in that play in that tournament. I think the only drawback of things like this, and I feel like we've seen. Wasn't there like another retro tournament sometime recently at a regional or an IC or something? Am I misremembering?
Well, there's been gym leader challenge ones, which is probably what the where the issue you're gonna mention. Are you gonna mention something about proxies and
Yeah, but I thought
yeah.
that came up like last year at NAIC for an official tournament. Am I misremembering? 'Cause as I'm bringing up this point, I'm like remembering that this has been an issue recently.
I think it was mostly around GLC. I don't remember for sure. I there may have been some other sort of sanctioned retro format tournament in the past, but this is the first one like that's I mean, and maybe it's just because it's sticking out and obvious right now,
Yeah.
um but yeah, like for these events because they are hosted by TPCI and usually the ones at regionals, and maybe it has to do with like ones at regionals and stuff too, because typically, um, these formats are 2010 World Championships was 15 years ago now at this point, right? When
Yeah.
you do even some of these older tournaments, there's 2006 or RSPK are both very popular. These cards are very old, very hard to get your hands on, very expensive. So it's pretty
Yeah.
commonplace that a lot of people, when they're playing these formats, will use proxies. They'll use foreign language cards as well. But at these official sanctioned type tournaments, that's not the case. You have to use legal official Pokemon TCG cards. You can't use printout proxies, and I don't think you can even use foreign cards for these things usually as well.
Yeah. I feel like they should at least allow foreign cards at the very least, because I feel like there's definitely some that are a lot cheaper than English or Japanese cards out there in other languages.
Oh, big time.
So that would allow people to actually participate by using official cards, as long as all your cards have the same back. Or like you could even go as far as saying you can mix up Japanese and non-Japanese cards. And actually, back in 2010, you could do that. You could play Japanese cards. A lot of people used Japanese Uxie and Uxie level X's because they were cheaper than
Yeah.
English ones. You could play a tenth of your deck. You can play up to 6 cards. So up to
Yeah.
six of your cards could be a different language. Um, I mean, there would almost be like a reason to do that because you used to be able to do that back then. But I feel like they should at least allow that. I would like to see them allow proxies
Yeah.
because it's so hard to get these cards or they're so expensive. But I can kind of understand that a little bit. But at the very least, I feel like they should allow you to use any language cards, and maybe as long as you bring your own translations or something
Yeah, I
on
definitely think that
paper.
would be ideal. I will say for this type of thing as well, it's usually pretty reasonable to like be able to find someone that has multiple 2010 decks. So if you're like interested in playing in one of these things and you kind of show up, hang around, or like have some friends that are interested as well, you can usually find someone that that uh has like an extra deck or something that they can loan out and stuff like that. And I think with this as well, you will be able to use like the Celebrations Classic Collection cards, which is kind of cool. Like the Luxor AGL Level X from Celebrations, I'm
Mm,
pretty sure will be legal for something like
hopefully,
this, right? There's a Claydol, there's a Garchomp C Level X as well. So all those cards I think you can use. And then there's like some of the decks are reasonable enough to like kind of invest in. Like you can build Jumpluff or Gyarados, which are both pretty good decks and then also pretty inexpensive. They don't have a lot of like level X cards in them and stuff like that. So um, there's you can kind of find the pieces to make something happen, and I think you can probably use like modern day rare candies, even though the text was different back then, right? Like I think you just have to be using like actual Pokemon cards.
yeah, yeah. And it would be cool to see them like do more of this in the future, of course, as well. And then maybe if they do get bigger and they feel like they're popular enough, they'll maybe allow like for more leeway in terms of what cards you can use. But
I'm
yeah,
just
it's
crossing
really
my fingers that there's some way, some world where TCG finals is done by 11 a.m. so I can go play in this thing. But if TCG finals isn't done, I'm still gonna have to be working, so I won't be able to participate, unfortunately.
I doubt it'll be done by 11. It's never. It usually starts at like 1, right? 12
Yeah,
or 1.
it won't be done.
Yeah, it won't be
It's
done.
wishful thinking.
um, Actually, one more thing I was gonna bring up because I'm curious who you got. The conference finals are starting this week. I think the
Oh
first
yeah.
game is today as we're recording it, and we're gonna get a. Uh, I saw something on Twitter. It's like we're gonna have 7 different champions in 7 years or something like that. But who do you got making it to the finals
Who
and
do I
winning it?
want to win or who do I think is most likely gonna win?
One or the other, both. Who do you think is going to? Who do you
I
think has the best chance?
I mean, probably the Thunder have the best chance, like, most
Yeah,
realistically, but I would love to see the Timberwolves win. I've really become a big fan of, Anthony Edwards and, like, his game and stuff like that. It's been fun to watch him the last couple seasons as I've gotten back into basketball, so I would love to see and for, yeah, I mean, I just think it would be super cool for sure to see them win. Also, the Pacers kind of is like the biggest underdog, like the least respected team. It feels like
yeah,
in the conference finals. I feel like I always am down to root for like an underdog story, and it feels like they are the team with the least respect of the four still remaining by far.
definitely. Yeah, I feel the same way. I think OKC's probably has the favorites to win, but I would like to see the Timberwolves win. And then I'm actually not even sure. I know the Pacers are the underdog. I don't even know how good the Knicks. I don't think I've watched a single Knicks playoff game so far. Maybe one.
You didn't
Um,
watch the Celtics series at all?
well, I think I watched like the first game.
They
And
came
then
back from being down 20 twice in the first three games
yeah, yeah, they made the
against the
comebacks.
Celtics, against the defending champs.
Yeah, and then after Tatum got hurt, I stopped watching. Like
Yeah.
completely, I was not interested at all. Which is kind of an unfortunate thing about the playoffs this season in general. Like, I don't know if how much more of a fight the Warriors could have put up, but I didn't watch like a single Warriors game because Curry's out. Like, why do I want to watch? I don't want to watch a series where Curry's not even playing. So it's like a lot of injuries. But it feels like that's every year. There's like injuries are a big factor in some teams' potential. Not all teams, but
Yeah. How
staying healthy is
deep a team
important.
is.
Yeah. Um, yeah, we had a lot of tournaments over the past weekend. So we should start diving into them because we got a lot of results to go over.
We do have a lot of results. So there were four tournaments. There was the Melbourne Regional Championships. There was the Utrecht Special Championships, the Santiago Regional Championships, and there was also the Masterball League in Thailand. Let's just start real quick with the Masterball League in Thailand because I don't think we have posted results anywhere
Yeah.
to look at. But
Or is
you did
there
the watch partying and stuff. I didn't. There's nothing on PTCG stats right
okay, you
now.
checked. All right.
Yeah, I did check. Yeah, there's nothing on PTCG stats yet. There probably will be something somewhere eventually, but we don't have the info compiled just yet. But you watched the tournament as well. What were kind of some of the things you saw? What were your takeaways and what ended up winning?
Yeah, just so to put out there initially, they're like playing a in between format between us and Japan. Steven's cards are legal, Marnie's cards are legal, Shaman is legal, and so is Crustle as far as like the big noteworthy cards. So it's like
Interesting.
they have some of Japan's Heat Wave, but they don't have the Ethan's cards at all. So they have like
How did that even happen?
so I assume so there's some like Journey Together product I think that Shaman comes in, and then I think they got the Marnie and Grimmsnarl decks or the Marnie and the Stevens decks enough ahead of time where it was like they're now legal for play over there. So they're playing like an in between format between us and Japan, which is I don't know, weird. like um definitely weird. And I don't know how that's gonna end up for um well the Japan Championships they'll be playing in like the new format with the black and white cards. And then there's the what was I gonna say? There's the Masterball League in Singapore, which is the week after the Japan Championships. And I assume that might be, like, similar format. I actually just don't know, to be honest, how it's gonna all break down. But, yeah, they were playing in, like, a different format, basically. So we saw Marge Grimstar made its way on stream, but Charizard actually ended up taking the whole thing down. But, I mean, don't read too much into it. They are playing a different format. They have Shaman. They don't have Psyduck. They do not have the Psyduck. They have Shaman. They have the Marnie's Grimmsnarl. But we saw Charizard versus Gardevoir in the finals, and it was, like, a pretty one-sided affair. The Gardevoir player it wasn't even close. Like, Charizard Dusknoir just bodies Gardevoir. Pretty one-sided, but Charizard, Dusknoir takes it all down in the end over there. But it's an interesting situation because their format is just so weird. Um,
That was interesting to note about the Stevens and Marnie's deck, and I guess since you just brought that up, that would be a good time for us to talk about this just really quickly. It has officially been confirmed that the Marnies and Stevens rival battle decks, the cards that we got in that, do not become legal earlier than Destined Rivals.
yeah,
They'll be legal right before NAIC. I know there was like a little bit of a question about it. I think we talked about it on the podcast, right?
yeah,
Of would these cards be able to be played at Boulogne, right? The
yeah,
next tournament, 2 weeks after they've been released, and that will not be the case. They won't be legal until 2 weeks after Destined Rivals has come out.
yeah. That was like going to be the question for uh Bologna or Bologna, whether or not that would be legal. uh, and yeah, the answer is no. This felt like one of those situations, though. Like we see this. I don't, do you have the tweet pulled up so people can see it?
Yes, yeah.
The tweet from Sable here. It feels weird that a support ticket it feels like there was enough confusion in the community where it would have been nice to see like a statement made on Pokemon.com, right? Is that fair to
Mhm.
say, do you think? It felt like there was enough confusion where it'd be like, all right, maybe or tweet like if Play Pokemon just tweeted, hey, we see there's some confusion in the community about whether or not these cards will be legal at the end of the month in 2 weeks, or with the rest of the Destined Rivals cards, they'll be legal with the rest of the Destined Rivals card. Put the date out there for NAIC or whatever. It felt like there was enough confusion where like it would have been nice to just like see a tweet from Play Pokemon, but I guess maybe that confusion didn't make its way over to TPCI and they didn't really see that. I guess that's possible.
I think it's been made apparent that if you have a question about something happening in the community, the best way to get it in front of the eyes of someone at TPCI is to submit a support ticket. No matter how many people it feels like are talking about it online, on Twitter, if you want a direct answer from the company, you got to submit a support ticket.
Yeah, because I heard there was even like confusion in the judges' Discord at whatever, and they were questioning whether or not it was legal, and they were like, and actually that's maybe what Sable was part of as well, and getting that response. But that feels like I mean, it feels like they should probably have a little bit more of a direct connection to get like an immediate response. It feels like TPCI, but I guess like one thing is maybe TPCI didn't know for sure. They got like asked the question. They're like, wait, is it legal? Is it not legal? We have to make a decision on this. Of course, that would be really bad if that was the actual discussion that happened at TPCI. But yeah, it just feels like there could be like a quicker turnaround. I feel like there was enough confusion in the community for them to like. I feel like the Play Pokemon Twitter putting out a tweet clarifying would have been like at least cool to see. But yep, support ticket. I mean, we at least we know we'll get an answer through a support ticket eventually.
All right, well, let's take a look at the results from Melbourne, Utrecht, and Santiago. And I guess we'll just kind of go around the globe with this, starting with Melbourne, the tournament that technically would have finished ahead of the rest of them. Or I mean, I guess we could do like a full metagame breakdown of all three tournaments all together. Would that be interesting, or should we just go by one by one?
Well, I have already looked at all these on stream. And I'll tell you, they're all very similar. And actually, I think this is like a good because I get asked all the time about like, do different regions have different metagames? And the answer is, for the most part, no. Obviously, it's a little bit different with Japan because they're sometimes in a different format. Or you even look at like the Thailand Masterball League this weekend. They're in a different format, so their metagame is going to be a little bit different. But the metagame for these terms was basically all the same. The numbers were a little bit different. I believe it was Utrecht that had a little bit less of a top heavy metagame. The numbers were a little bit lower, but the top three decks were all the same. It was all Dragapult, Raging Bolt, Gardevoir. Only in Melbourne did Gardevoir overtake Raging Bolt, which maybe could have been predicted. And then Joltic and Gholdengo were always 4 and 5, around the same percentage numbers as well, in every single metagame. So if we just take a look at one of the metagames here, we'll get a good idea of what basically everything looked like. Tera Box was between 5 and 6% for all the tournaments, as well. So it was all basically the same. So yeah, if we do go with a combination here, it would be a good representation of what was actually being played for sure.
Yeah, so across those three tournaments, and this is a nice feature that Robin has now added to Limitless Labs. Shout outs to Robin and Limitless as always, where we can combine the data from these three tournaments: Santiago, Utrecht, and Melbourne. Um, and yeah, Raging Bolt, or sorry, Dragapult leading the way with 19.8, almost 20% meta share across all of the events. Raging Bolt number two, like you mentioned in Melbourne. Gardevoir was slightly ahead of Raging Bolt, but yeah, very, very close here. And then Gardevoir just behind 13.5%.
Yeah, and then yeah, like I said, the Joltik and the Gholdengo were both there, right under that at the 10 and the 8. And I don't think there's anything like huge surprises as far as that go. I think if you like think about it, the only thing I was like maybe expecting to see was to see Tera Box be played a little bit more because I think the metagame had been getting better for it, but I don't know, maybe it just kind of found its home at that 5 to 6% number, and it's not really gonna make many gains here as we get to the end of this format. But I think the top half is like pretty solidified, for sure
Yeah,
overall,
I
and
think
nothing's a shock.
I think I could definitely see Tera Box jumping Gholdengo at some point here because Gholdengo has really just felt like it's kind of on the way out in the format at the moment. It just um it's been around. It hasn't quite been as successful. It's been
Yeah.
decent, but it hasn't like had anything to really justify. I mean, it's already come down a lot. It was the second most popular deck in Atlanta at like 15, 16%, right? And it's just already almost cut in half.
Yeah, it's been consistently getting I think it maybe had a little bit of an up and down, but it's been trending downwards for sure. The one deck that I thought was gonna be at least maintain its popularity, and it's not like that much less popular, or I thought it would actually come up in popularity was Zoroark. We saw Zoroark at like 5%, I believe, the weekend previous, and now it went down to like 3%, 3.5% here this weekend across the board. So that was a little bit of a surprise to me, and also Flareon as well. Although I know like Flareon's big struggle is the Guardy matchup. So I don't fault anyone for not playing Flareon, but there's other decks out there that are being played and getting more popular, even with bad Guardy matchups as well. So
Who was it? I saw someone that played Flareon played the Umbreon EX. Did you see that?
yeah, it was top cut in Melbourne. Had the Umbreon, which I will say I don't think makes a big difference in the Guardy matchup because Screamtail is the best attacker in the matchup for Gardevoir. So the Guardy EX isn't making its way into the active that often. And the EV box deck is not, it can't just like create a big attacker out of nowhere past like the early turns. Once your crystal's in play, if you don't have an energy on an EV, then all of a sudden you can't just go like Crystal Crispin. So your plays are pretty telegraphed as the EV box deck. So you can't really like it's hard to like surprise an Umbreon out of nowhere. The Guardy player will be able to will basically know if Umbreon is like a potential on your turn going into it. So yeah, I don't think the Umbreon solves the Guardy matchup by any means.
I wonder
Uh
if it could be just like a prize race. Can become a prize race type thing at that point, especially with Briar getting into the mix, right?
Possibly, yeah. I feel like usually it's easy for the Gardevoir player to kind of isolate your like one big attacker or two, and then just knock those out after
Mhm.
taking apart your Hootuts and your draw power with Screamtail.
Well, let's start looking at some of these results here. And it was a good weekend to be a Gardevoir player. Let's just say, of the three tournaments, Gardevoir was able to come out on top in two of them. It won in Melbourne. It won in Santiago, and there we go, standings. That's what button I was looking for. And then in Utrecht, it was Dragapult coming out on top.
Yeah, it was Dragon Ball coming out on top in Utrecht, and there is like a little bit of a. I would say if we start at Santiago and look at those standings, those are ones where it's most. You get the most variety in the top cut. Asymmetrical cut did hit, so it was a 12-player cut, of course, and there was still 4 Dragapults in cut, but you also had some Joltic Box, Raging Bolt, Gardevoir, 1 Gholdengo, one of the EV boxes, or 2 Gardevoirs, I guess, total. So there's a little bit more variety. Obviously, seeing a lot of Dragapult in cut isn't like a shock or anything, right? Um, and then you look at the other ones, and it was like Utrecht was kind of dominated by Dragapult, and then Melbourne was kind of dominated by Gardevoir. And honestly, the only tournaments that I could see being a different, I think if you resimulate Melbourne, I think Gardevoir still dominates, similar to this. But I think if you resimulate the other 2 tournaments, you could definitely have seen a little bit more variety in what did well. We'll probably see a little bit less Dragapult domination, maybe a little bit more Gardevoir doing well at Utrecht, and then there was already a lot of variety over at Santiago. So I think if you resimulated, these would be a little bit different. I don't think that'd be the same for Melbourne, though.
How,
I feel like Gardevoir was destined to win that one.
how many times do we have to simulate Santiago for Camilo here to get the win? 16th place, Great Tusk Mill.
That's probably a decent amount of simulations, I'm not
Oh
gonna lie.
no!
I do like this is cool to see it up there for sure, and
Look
I'm
how many
always
Gardevoir they
rooting.
played against.
Yeah, I'm always rooting for decks like the Great Tusk Mill to do well. It's always cool when these decks are actually, like, viable in the metagame. Despite the top 16 finish here, though, I'm the jury, I feel like, is still out on Great Tusk Mill, but hey, if it's good, I'm down for it. I'm down for it to be good.
Another call out we definitely have to give with Brent winning now his second regional championships in this format using the exact same 60 cards. We can just hop back over to the Limitless page, look at the deck list. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, and look at how many players have gotten finishes with this deck. I mean,
Yep.
that's crazy.
And especially with Brent winning without changing a card, I mean, I think that's gonna motivate a lot of people to play the exact same 60 coming up this weekend in Portland, and potentially Bologna the weekend after as well.
This 60 has won 3 majors, 2 of them by Brent, one of them by Johan, and then it also won in juniors as well. So this 60 has definitely been proven to probably just be the blanket way to play Gardevoir. I don't
Yep.
necessarily want to say the best way. It probably is the best way.
Yeah.
I would say generally, you like at the top end, ideally, I feel like you want to see a card or two changing each tournament, right? Adjustments being made
Yeah.
for like the changing meta and stuff like that. But sometimes, just the deck works like it's meant to work. I mean, there's really no frills with this list, right? It is like just consistent. It is powerful. We're not teching for anything with any of these cards, really. I mean, I guess you say like Lily's Clefairy is a tech for
Yeah.
Dragapult, right? But like, it's just a card that's going to be in the deck no matter what.
It's more of a
Um,
must-have than a, like, should I play this? It's like, no, you have to play this.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a testament, I would say, to Brent's play, probably more than anything, to be honest, to be able to just continue to dominate with the same 60 over and over again.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And I would say, where was I gonna go to say something I was gonna say? Oh yeah. As far as like card, yeah, I think this is the best way to play Gardevoir, right? I think the discussion was this or Zoroark. I think this is probably the best way to play Gardevoir. Like, and that's what I would say. I would be pretty confident saying that, having played very little Gardevoir this far. I'd be like, yeah, it's probably the best way to play Gardevoir. And then as far as cards changing goes, that discussion actually came up in my stream this week, and it's like, I think it's a combination of Gardevoir isn't really being pressed to adapt because Dragapult is taking all of the focus in this format. Gardevoir has been like flying under the radar as the best play. Like, I thought it was the best play going into this weekend. It's been the best play maybe for a couple weeks in a row here, but it's been flying under the radar because Dragapult has been having so much success and is so popular. Like, all the focus is on Dragapult, and I think we're gonna probably start to see that shift just at the end of the format. It might not drastically shift going into Portland, but I think the last couple events past Portland, we'll start to see more of a dramatic change to being like, okay, wait, hang on, Gardevoir has to be a little bit more of the focus here. And also with that, I think Brent is probably playing maybe the best list. Of course, there could be someone out there with a better Gardevoir list, but they're probably not as good as Brent. So the chance that they see success is just going to be less just based on that. And that's like another reason, if no one is playing a better Gardevoir list than you or pushing you in terms of your skill. Not everyone's playing the same 60, then there's no reason for you to change either. So just play the same 60 again because your list is still better than everyone else's. Because no one's actually got to the point where they're playing a list as good as you. Now we might get to the point where it's like, okay, there's enough people copying that maybe you want to find some kind of tech card for mirror. I don't know what that would be to tech for the mirror in the Gardevoir, or maybe just keeping it simple, like you said, is just the best way to keep going moving forward. Just there's not that many tournaments left either to make these adaptations. So before we get to the new format, but yeah, I think this is definitely solidified as the best way to play Gardevoir. Is it the perfect 60? Who knows? There could be a card or two that's better to change. Vinny Fernandez, or not Vinny, Gabriel Fernandez won in seniors over in Santiago, cutting a nest ball for a Mew EX from the Brent 60. So Gabriel getting another dub. Has Gabriel won every? Oh, Gabriel already won every regional in Brazil, right? And now has won
in
a
Chile.
regional. Yeah.
Let me see. Can I sort by? I can't sort by division here.
Hmm. You can just go to his page.
Oh,
Click on
true.
it.
Good call. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. First. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. 1/7. I doubt.
$24,000 won as a what? He's probably 14, 15, something like that.
Yeah.
How much
Well,
money were you making when you were 14?
not that much. First regional I won a $1,500 scholarship.
Put that to use.
Eventually, they just turned all the scholarships into cash payouts. So
Yeah.
eventually, just got his cash.
It works the same. There you go.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I guess we could take a look at all the results here, starting with Melbourne. So we had all the Gardevoirs in cut. There's not too much to take a look at. I believe 4 of them or 5 of them were all just the Brent 60. Yeah, 4 of them I think were the Brent 60. Here, Natalie, Callum, Angus, and Brent. Jeremy's list was a little bit different, so I guess we could take a look at that real fast. But it's not too different. It's very
Morty's.
similar, just some Mortys over a research and a nest ball. Um, so I think probably very much inspired still from Brent's initial 60.
I'd say so. Cool thing here in Melbourne, we do typically at these Australian regionals see a handful of Japanese players go over and compete. And that
Yep.
was true here. 3 Japanese players in cut, and Daichi Shimada making it all the way to top 4. Daichi, probably one of the most popular players over in Japan, most well
Definitely.
known in the Western part of the world as well. Got second place at the World Championships in 2022. And yeah, here he is with the third place with the Tera Box.
Yeah, he's been to a couple other TPCI events now besides Worlds, and this is like it was definitely felt like it was just a matter of time before he made a top cut at one of them and played a pretty interesting Tera Box list here. The big standout cards are like the Badoo and the Briar. You don't see those that often in the Tera Box. And then as far as exclusion goes, no Ursaluna and no there's another card that stood out. Oh, no Cornerstone. I feel like Cornerstone has kind of moved on in the format overall though, in general as like a potential inclusion. But yeah, the Badoo and the Briar are interesting for sure. But besides that, pretty standard. Like people are going down to like the 1 Ogre Pawn, the 4 Grass Energy, the 4 Crispin plus Super Rod combo has also been pretty popular. So but yeah, it's cool to see I mean, yeah, this is Terra Box still succeeding. It's cool to see that. There was another Terra Box and cut as well, Nigel. And Nigel's list was, I would say, a little bit more stands out a little bit more. The 2 Clefairy, the Lily's Clefairy, the Lily's Pearl, and then only the 3 different supporters in the deck: Crispin, Boss, and Iono.
Little less options there. We got the double ditto. I don't know how I feel about the double ditto.
You do Ditto a decent amount
Right.
on
But is
turn
it
one.
that bad if it's prized?
Yeah, I don't know. It feels a little overkill. The double Ditto feels a little overkill for sure.
There is
But
the benefit, of course, of like opening it more often if
yeah,
you
this is a pretty
play
good starter.
two, but you play a zillion basic Pokemon anyway. Like it's not increasing your chances that much, I feel like.
Yeah, the
That's
double
an interesting
Ditto.
one. The Lily's Pearl is definitely cool. Because it can kind of allow a aggressive one prize board state early,
Yeah.
right? In certain matchups where normally this deck can't do that at all. There's no like one prize attacker, right? So the Lily's Pearl kind of provides that, which is cool.
Yeah, it allows you to like play into regaining the prize rate. I would assume up against stuff like Joltic Box and Raging Bolt are probably the big matchups where you can like if you put down Pikachu as your Terra and you play through Noctowl Clefairy from there, get the Pearl involved, then all of a sudden, yeah, it's like you said, a full one prize board state besides the Pikachu, but its ability
It can't,
um
yeah.
is keeping it safe in the situation. So Yeah, definitely an interesting inclusion for sure.
I mean, with I like honestly, like with like sometimes you maybe don't even need a Terra guy in play, right? You got 4
Yeah,
Crispin, you just get the Clefairy out with the Nest Ball, and boom, there you go.
yeah, that could be all you need to get going.
Yep. So that I definitely think is cool. I guess while we're on the topic, real quick, of just these
Era.
Terra builds, the Noctowl engine decks, there is just EV Box at this point. Nothing too crazy from the EV Box lists besides the Umbreon, which we already kind of talked about.
Yeah, nothing too wild. Yeah, the Umbreon's a standout. Besides that, this is pretty standard as far as EV boxes go.
Do you think Michael used Onyx at any point in the weekend?
No, I don't think so.
Mm.
It's a pretty bad attack. It's like actually not that good. It's like one of those attacks where it's like against like weird tank decks, like a Stone Journer, that attack could be pretty good. If you KO like a one prizer early, I guess in Stone Journer they didn't even have any one prizers, but something like that where you KO one prize
Okay,
earlier.
Stone Journer V, then a V Max. Then you can't get through the
Yeah,
last
sure,
V Max.
sure,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then that's where these kind of attacks can be good. Yeah, you KO the V, then the V Max. You have one prize card left, but you can't get through that last V Max. Onyx for game. But besides that, these kind of attacks are usually not that good. Same thing with like the Sigilif in the End Zoroark deck. Like it's not good. You'd rather play like another Boss's Orders because it's just a more versatile card.
Didn't I watch a stream game of yours where you lost to the Sigilif in the Inzork
Yeah,
mirror?
I
Okay,
did. I did lose to the Sigilif.
interesting. All right. And then got a lot of Gardevoirs, and then into the back end here, 3 Raging Bolts rounding out top cut.
Yeah, this is actually pretty interesting. If you take a look at the two lists here, there's like a couple different little things in here. Like there's second baby Raging Bolt. The big thing from all the lists from Japan, though, and there's a couple outside of the top cut as well. They don't play Mew in Raging Bolt, which it's interesting to see that because I feel like Mew's pretty good in there, and the amount of games I've seen people lose between this weekend and last weekend because they didn't aggressively bench Mew, specifically in Raging Bolt, is pretty high. Like there was a decent amount of situations over the last 2 weeks where it's like the Raging Ball player, it's the kind of like a meme in my chat now, people disrespecting Mew. The Raging Ball player had Mew in hand and just chose not to bench it, and then they got hand disrupted, and then they wish they had draw power in play, or they could have aggressively got the Mew out of their deck and put it in play, didn't do it. They got hand disrupted and then definitely regretted it instantly. So it's interesting to see like because I said like it feels like Mew's pretty good in there. We saw Labella win recently with the Mew in the list, and then we see the Japanese players choosing to omit it from their list and not play it at all. But I don't know. It feels like a mistake to me. I don't know. The Mew seems pretty powerful in the Raging Ball. Just have some kind of onboard draw power, specifically up against the Dragapult matchup, which is not taking knockouts too aggressively. So you can't fully rely on Pheasantipity.
I actually do really like the inclusion of the second Raging Bolt because it feels like that card is such a vital part of like why this deck is being finding success right now, specifically against like Dragapult and Gardevoir, right? Like that card is super good in both of those matchups. And if you only play one and you prize the one and you start swinging with Raging Bolt EX on turn 2, it feels a lot weaker.
Well, the one play, and we actually did see this come up over the weekend. The play to make, and was actually a mistake that Labella made in one of his games. You can use Fez to replace your Baby Bolt
Sure.
as your initial attacker, and we saw that actually come up. I think Johan did it in one of the games he was on stream. The Fez play. We saw Labella make the mistake in his set. I don't know if it was the finals or not, but he got Latios instead of Fez when the Baby Bolt was prized, but should have got Fez and set up for the turn 2 Fez to start sniping. With the backup of Fez, the second Baby Bolt doesn't
Sure.
feel necessary, because Fez is a pretty consistent out to that, especially if you play the double Crispin like Labella did. But then a couple other decks to like mention outside. I cut a couple walls in top 32 and top 16 here, which is definitely a surprise.
This deck has fallen off almost completely. It feels like.
Yeah, and them not going super deep makes sense because the Guardy matchup is pretty bad, and also Dragapult with Ursaluna has like an answer to this deck, especially if it's Dusknor Dragapult with Ursaluna. If they don't have the Dusknor, it's a little bit more awkward, because you can't like accelerate to the Ursaluna attack. But yeah, walls in general, it's a pretty mid deck in the format, but it's one of those situations. I think if you look at the walls players matchup breakdown, which is a really cool thing you can do now on Limitless Labs, really conveniently, just click on the player's name, you can look at what they played against. They did lose to all of the Gardevoirs they played against, but they beat pretty much like everything else. So the tie there against the T-Tar, but I'm sure it was not something they prepped against.
Tyranitar?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
And this list is pretty sick. This is a list I've been meaning to try out, the Reversal Energy Tyranitar deck.
Dude, the Dracloak in here just for the draw engine. Oh, Bibarel,
Need
how we
something.
miss you.
Truly, yes.
That's funny. Yeah, this is super cool. Yeah, I mean, Tyranitar is one of these interesting cards where it's like it's obviously its ability is super super strong, right? But a lot of effort to get a stage two fella in play and get to swinging and stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of work for sure. Um, but yeah. So yeah, the wall decks, they're gonna come up short against Guardy, which is a pretty bad deck to have a bad matchup
Yeah,
into. You'll only be able to go so far with something like the walls. If one of them had made cut, it wouldn't have been like a huge shock, but we see here once again losing to two guards. Also lost to one of the Dragapults, which is something you're hoping to beat, but sometimes they'll get the better of you because they have the Ursaluna, so they have ways to get through all of your Pokemon because they play the Ursaluna.
yeah. You can lose to good matchups sometimes.
And I'm trying to think if there was anything else. There was
We got a
enough for
Frostlass up
Frostlass.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a pretty standard list right now for what people have been playing. Um,
No Dragapult
Just
in Top Cut is kind of
no,
the standout thing here, but it's not surprising when you see like all the Gardevoir, right?
yeah. Also, yeah, when you see, I think, oh, we should take a look at the list from Yoshiki Arai. That was and Ryuki apparently played this list as well, I think. But yeah, there we go. This was a pretty cool list. That some of the, I think Kato also played this, I believe. So this is a pretty interesting take on Tera Box. I think Tord played this at the most recent Champions League or the one before. Not the most recent one because he played the Mewtwo deck, but I think the last one he maybe played something similar to this. Um, this is a pretty cool build. This is like one of the decks that I'm thinking about putting some time into bring to Portland as of right now. The only thing that stands out to me that I don't like is the lack of Pidgeotto, but besides that, it's a pretty cool deck.
Yeah, just kind of like a lot of different options, it feels like. You have the Pidgeot as kind of like more of a consistent late game response to like the unfair stamps, which these Noctowl Engine
Yeah,
decks have a hard time against, right? You still have the aggressive early game from Wellspring Mask against the evolving decks. I guess you can crown Opal and just beat Joltig, right? Which is kind of
yeah,
funny. Uh, and then yeah, that thin 101 Dusknoir gives you some kind of plays, right?
yeah. The Crown Opal can be interesting against that matchup and
Raging Bolt.
the Raging Bolt matchup as well. The 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 Joltic box you can only give you like so much of an advantage because they do play Ursaluna, so they'll get
Right,
through you
right.
eventually, but it can get you the prize lead, which is the important part.
Yeah, very cool. That's a unique one for sure. Let's hop over and now look at Utrecht so we can take a little bit of a break from Gardevoir and talk about the Dragapult mirror match that took place here in the finals. We got Yoa Wagner versus Alberto Conti. Alberto was going for his second win of the season. Was not able to quite get there though. Yoa gets the win in that mirror match. List here looks pretty normal. The Maractus is kind of the one standout thing I feel
Yeah.
like that not everyone plays, but it's not a surprise to see in the deck, right? Um,
Yeah, nothing crazy. The Miraculous is super cool too, and we saw Yoa like make multiple comebacks with it on stream. And I'm like just convinced if you're playing if you're playing Dusknoir Dragapult, I could see not playing the Miraculous based on space. But if you're playing no Dusknoir, I think you get the Miraculous in there. It's just so sick in so many situations. Big fan of the Miraculous. We saw it
yeah,
initially from Kim. I think Kim played it at Seville.
both of these players are still rocking the unfair stamp. That was something we were kind of talking about a couple weeks ago. Is like, would unfair stamp fall back a little bit in some of these Dragapult decks to be able to have more response to the aggressive decks, get the Crystal or the Neo upper in there, right?
Yeah.
And then we got Noah here in the top four. I believe Noah lost to Yoa, right? On stream.
Yes.
Yeah. And Noah was playing Dusknoir. Um, has the Cleffa in here, which you don't always see.
Mhm.
Um, other than that, though, no Brock scouting has the two Jack though, kind of similar
Yeah.
to the Hedrick build with the Lux Cape.
I'd say a standout as well as like no Luminous. Like I feel like
Mhm.
everyone has kind of grabbed towards playing some Luminous. So the lack of Luminous is I would say interesting for sure. I think even Hedrick's most recent list that he played at a tournament had some Luminous in there as well. It was still a Dusknoir build, but did have a couple Luminous to go with everything else. So uh there was the Yoan with the one Raging Bolt. And Yoan actually got in during the interview from winning one of the Swiss rounds, I believe. Yoan was just like and Yoan did just recently win
Yes.
Seville, right? And he's
Johan won Seville with Brent's 60 from Monterey.
yeah, and now this tournament gets top 4, and he's playing the exact 60 that Labella used to win Milwaukee. And in his interview, he said, "I'm literally just copying the deck that won the last big tournament and playing it at the tournament I'm going to. So the taking net decking to the to its most efficient, right? Like getting these big finishes with these decks that have just won tournaments is like, all right, that's a pretty good list. It just won a tournament. I'll play it. Gets a dub himself, and then here gets a top 4 with the Raging Bolt. So it's cool to see that for sure. And like I said, this is literally Labella 60, so nothing crazy going on here.
Hey, proof that you don't have to overthink it, you know?
Yeah, you could just literally just play a
Take a
good
good
deck.
deck and play really
They will.
well, and
Yeah,
those 2 things, like, that'll lead to tournament success for sure.
yeah. Yoan
Now
definitely a very
I'm
good
sure
player.
it's possible Yoan rolled up having not played any games, but I have to imagine there was some practice that involved the week leading up,
Yeah,
right? So yeah, obviously, like, having a good 60 is important, but knowing your deck is probably more important.
yeah. And then the lone Zoroark in all of the top cuts here from Jan. And it is that Cyrano build, similar to what we saw succeeding in Milwaukee. There was a couple in cut in
Bombardier.
Milwaukee. We had the Bombardier and the Cyrano, right? But this list, including some nest balls, also the third Darumaka. No one was playing the third Darumaka, I believe, at Milwaukee. Everyone was giving up on the Darumakas, or the third one, but bringing it back here to the 3, which I like. Playing 2 Darumaka feels super
Dude,
sketch.
people hate Darumaka, bro. They're hunting him down. That
Yeah,
guy
I
comes into
know.
play and they're after him right away. You got to get the extra Maka in there. And then there was a Dragapult Charizard here in Top Cuts with the Rabska line added in.
Yeah. And I actually like this. Like, I think Charizard overall is pretty bad. Now, if you play it with Dragapult, you're all of a sudden playing a Dragapult deck. This is Dragapult Charizard, not Charizard Dragapult, right? So all of a sudden you're playing a Dragapult deck, which Dragapult, arguably the best card in the game right now, best Pokemon, right? As far as attack and everything, with the Dracloak line in there as well. But I like the going the extra mile of being like, listen, we're still probably unfavored against the other straightforward Dragapult decks. Let's put the Rabska in here. Let's have some more help in that matchup. So I really like the Rabska inclusion in this build. That definitely is. That's where Charizard comes up short. We're playing anything with Charizard comes up short. Is up against Dragapult, so sure that up a little bit.
And then kind of a opposite side of the coin from what happened in Australia. There was just one Gardevoir in Top Cut here. And
It is the
it
Brent
is the Brent
60.
60. Yep. I was trying to get a quick look and see if I noticed anything different. Nope, Brent
Oh,
60.
Brent 60. And
And
then
then one last
finally,
Dragapult.
yep, no Nor, nothing crazy either though. Oh, maybe you know what? Actually, I guess one call out would be there's a lot of Arvin in this build. Only one Brock scouting, so that's something we had been seeing people gravitate towards with a higher Brock scouting count. So
Less
this build
Arvin, or
is
sometimes no Arvin.
yeah. So this build is I don't know, I feel like that build's a little outdated. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like but maybe
Well, it's probably
maybe that's
better
the
into non-Badoo decks, right?
yeah,
To
yeah.
have
So it's better in
Arvin.
non-mirror, even
Yeah,
because even up against Guardy isn't always going to Badoo you.
right.
So yeah, I would say I don't know. And honestly, actually, maybe a build like this moving forward is the better way to play it because theoretically, Dragapult's going to be coming down in percentage, but we'll talk about that more later.
Any other
Um,
cool decks you want to look at here? There was a Poison
yep.
Moon right outside Top Cut.
Yeah, Simon with the Poison Moon, Pokemon catchers in there as well, of course, got to have them. This is a deck that I have not had time to play with yet, but I think there is some potential here. I definitely feel like it's the deck that is had the poison package is best in. Um, so this is a deck that I've wanted to put some time with, haven't really had a shot to, but yeah, we see it having some success here. It's had a decent amount of success kind of around the world in general. Uh, but it's very like it's not very highly played as well. So that's like one of the things like that's probably why we're not seeing it break into top cut at all or anything like that, you know. Things have to be played enough to actually make that push. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that was scroll down real fast, see if I can remember if there's anything else. But I don't think there's anything else worth taking a look at. Oh, the Okie Dokie deck on the winning in Matthew
Oh,
output with these Ogie Dogie Caesar to Dunsparce lost the winning and almost was in top cut with this build, which is a super sick build. Um, I think he said on Twitter the Guardy matchup is not great. But if you take a look at his matches,
he beat all of them, or he lost to one. Zach
lost to one,
Bakari.
tied one, beat 3 of them.
Dude, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Yeah. Uh, so it was doing something right, or maybe the Gardevoir players were doing something wrong. I guess is
I
possible.
think he did say there was a lack of attacking with Gardevoir EX against some of the Gardevoir players. Although you can't really fault anyone for not knowing the Okie Dokie matchup very well, to be honest. So,
Yeah.
But this was a pretty
So
sick
what's the
build to
idea here?
see.
It's just like we're just like just making a big okie dokie and like swinging for one prize
I
or no
assume some
prize.
I assume some matchups you're only using Caesar into Dunsparce EX. Maybe you're always trying to set up an Okidogi initially, but then you can like pivot to like be like a multi Okidogi deck, right? You just set up a bunch of Okidogis, or you become a Caesar to Dunsparce EX deck. Like that's what we saw get used a lot. We saw Matthew on stream up against a Joltic box last round of day one against Gregory, and it was mostly attacking with Caesar and to Dunsparce EX. You initially like opened up with the Okidogi, but then you made the transition over to the other guy. So yeah, just kind of hodgepodge of decently powerful Pokemon. A lot of one prizers. Um,
That's so funny.
would
Yeah,
have
what
been
a
really
cool
sick to
deck.
yeah, would have been really sick to see it make top cut, but not quite this time.
And then finally, let's hop over to Santiago, where William Azevedo gets the win with Gardevoir.
But not the Brent 60. Back to the good old Arvin TM Evo.
Yep.
And this is definitely interesting. This is an interesting switch up here from William and crew, because I believe Pedro Petrucci, to probably no one's surprise, was playing the same 60 as William because they work together and are always cooking. It's good to see them not play Charizard, although I don't remember the last tournament they played, so I don't know if they played Charizard at the last tournament that they played in. I'm happy to see them off Charizard for sure. And one thing I like made note of when talking about this is what we had been this is what we saw most recently from Japan as well at Champions League Aichi. The Japanese players are all on heavy Arvin TM Evo builds like this build. So it's interesting to see. We see that also making or seeing some success over here now as well outside of Japan. Of course, Japan's in a different format. But I am curious to see moving forward. Like I said, it feels like the Brent way is the best way to play Gardevoir. Maybe this is the next evolution of Gardevoir, though. Maybe going back to the TM Evo, just more consistently. I feel like this build more consistently gets to like turn two Gardevoir. The TM Evo build does, but it's less explosive. So even when you get there, because you didn't play Research or something, or Research Iono, you've just seen less cards. So the big question becomes, how many energy do you actually have in your discard pile at that point? Um, but definitely interesting to see. And I guess like leaves another question mark for Gardevoir players to kind of solve. I think Zork's been pushed out of the way pretty much fully at this point. So maybe now there's just a little bit of a question mark. The Brent 60 or Arvin TM Evo. What is actually the better way moving forward? But I wouldn't be surprised to see most people gravitate towards the Brent 60.
There was a Raging Bolt that got second place. Pretty normal looking list here overall.
I think it's literally the
Yeah.
Labella 60.
Yep. And then we've got a couple of uh Joltic Box. The best finishes from Joltic Box on the weekend was the pair of top four finishes here. And there's some interesting cards in some of these decks, especially right here. The protective goggles
Yeah,
here. And I have to imagine, wait, yeah, can't be
no
has no
weakness.
weakness. So like what, this protects your Pikachu against like
To the wing.
Slitherwing? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I have
like
to
the only
imagine.
fighting guy. Dude, imagine the protective goggles coming into play up against like the Okie Dokie deck.
That'd be tragic, bro. You put that on your Iron Hands. Iron Hands draws like 4 prize cards against you.
Oh,
That'd be so sad. But yeah, we see there was a couple innovations we saw from the decks in general. We saw some players like you see this town store here. League HQ was at an all-time high over the weekend in Dragapult, in Zoroark decks, a lot of League HQ going around. And then we saw stuff like the protective goggles here in this build as a answer to the Slitherwing to stop it from just KOing your Pikachu off the rip. Also, the heavy baton in here as well. I like theorized you could like make an interesting board state against Raging Bolt where you put if you can get your heavy baton on your Iron Hands and the protective goggles on your Pikachu before Raging Bolt takes a knockout, it makes it a little bit awkward for them because if they KO your Iron Hands, you get a bunch of energy on your Pikachu, and then they can't KO your Pikachu because of the protective goggles. Now that's two situational tool cards that are one ofs that you have to find to make that kind of board state. So I don't know how realistic that is, but definitely some interesting inclusions in here. Maybe you start with the heavy baton first on your Iron Hands and load up your Iron Hands completely. And then once they go Slitherwing KO your Iron Hands, if they do, then all of a sudden you swing with Pikachu plus protective goggles. So that might be you might just initiate with the heavy baton and then go into the goggles after that or something like that. Because Raging Bolt's got plenty of prize cards for you to pick on with Iron Hands if they don't respect it. So, and then the other Joltic list here, I don't remember if they had or yeah, go to the other
oh
top
yeah,
4
yeah, yeah.
list. They maybe had the Vitality Band, which no, they did not have the Vitality Band. They also played a Town Store though, which once again an answer to the League HQs that were floating around. But some other lists that we saw from Joltic Box over the weekend did have the Vitality Band to make it so your Pikachu can actually 1 KO a Gardevoir, which definitely without Vitality Band is definitely favored for Gardevoir in like the realm of like 60-40 or better. but the Vitality Band might put it all of a sudden to at least 50-50 for Joltic Box, if not slightly favored.
And let's quickly hit some of the rest of these here. We've got yet another Dragapult. Nothing really standoutish here to
Nope.
me. Yeah, we've got a Dragapult Charizard, your favorite deck at the moment.
And definitely a different build from what we saw.
Yeah, we got the League HQ, the maximum belt is the A
No,
spec.
yeah, heavy on the team Evo, no Badoo at all, no
Yeah.
Rabsca, all in on Arvin and Iono to go through that TM Evo, um, which is interesting. But yeah, Charizard Dragapult's popping up a little bit.
Owen Dalgard with a top 8 finish with the EV box,
Standard, no Umbreon.
which I think is pretty standard. And then
Yeah,
we got a Terapagos deck here. So this is
yeah,
more similar. What is this the same 60 that Keaton Gill played to top 8 Atlanta, right? It looks very similar to that
pretty
with the
close to it.
Volcanion, the thin Pidgeot line.
Yeah, very, very close to it. Thin Pidgeot line, Volcanion, Tank Terapagos. So Tank Terapagos does get a showing here. I don't know if we talked. Did we already talk about Tank Terapagos a little bit? Like it was like a big deck at the beginning of the format, 10%, and it's all the way down to like 1% right now.
Yeah.
We do see it. I don't think this is like the revitalization of the deck. If anything, I think the deck actually has been consistently becoming a worse play because Gardevoir's been getting more popular, and it's a pretty bad matchup. We do see Dalen was able to get a dub against one of the Gardevoir that they played against, but I think that is a unfavored matchup for sure. So yeah, I wouldn't put my money on Tank Terapagos moving forward, despite this placement here.
Gholdengo, Dragapult, the one Gholdengo top cut showing on the weekend.
Yeah, 3-3 Loke. We saw the 4-4 Loke from Maddox, I think, in Milwaukee. See a 3-3 Loke here. I don't hate the extra draw power, to be honest. Extra draw power on board is pretty good for Gholdengo. Actually mitigating the prize card factors.
A couple more Dragapults, Victor Freitas with a pretty normal list. Nothing too surprising. The League HQ making an appearance
Yep.
though. And a straight Loke with the Maractus.
Yep. Maractus, Neo upper build. So no Arvins, no tool cards. Also had the League HQ in there.
And then is this the Brent 60? Nope, we got no, it is, right? Yeah.
No, there's a Arvins. Two Arvin over
Oh,
a
okay, yeah.
Nestball and a
A
Turo, and then a
Turo, yeah.
Poffin over a Nestball.
Yeah.
Also a Super Rod over. Actually, there's a
A
two
couple
Nitrogens
changes.
missing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, looking at the rest of the cut, we do see Pedro Patusi right outside the top cut, playing the same 60 as William, which is no surprise. They work together there. A couple Raging Bolts. And then I think the coolest deck from the weekend, even though it didn't make top cut, has to be the Great Tusk for sure. It's like, this is very similar to the build I think we saw on stream in Atlanta.
Yep.
And this shows that like there's maybe something there,
Yeah, maybe
right?
definitely more potential than what we saw on stream at Atlanta for
Yeah.
sure. I think, and they were pretty close to cut, right? They had that tie there against Nelson. If that tie is a win, of course they would change their follow up matchups for sure, right? But
Yeah.
they weren't that far away from potentially making the top cut here with the mill, which would have been pretty cool to see for sure. Definitely a big fan of seeing these decks succeed. Neutralization zone, I think, is a big part of
Yeah.
this deck's power in the format right now. Neutralization zone in general is just really, really good right now. Not that many stadiums in a lot of decks that would like fold to a neutralization zone.
Yeah, it actually kind of makes me wonder, like, if there is some other type of deck out there that could better utilize it, like as an attacking deck, you know.
Well, Moon to
I
Dump
mean, there's
Sparks
the
plays it.
moon, but that's
Yep.
it, right?
Yeah, and there was that deck actually had a decent amount of success too. I don't know if there was any close to cut here. But Aiden Coos, I believe, got top 32 in Melbourne with it again. I think he got 17th in the last
Hmm.
one.
Yeah.
So yeah, not too much success here from it. But yeah, Melbourne, there was maybe a couple. Yeah, there's Aiden with it again.
Yep. Cool to see for sure. Well, those are the tournaments from the weekend. Let's do a recap of our predictions, the predictions that we made heading in. First up was over under 1.5 Gardevoir wins this weekend. I was like, dude, come on. There's no shot, right? But no, there was a shot. 1.5 was that line, and it was over 1.5 wins.
Yeah, it was. We got the two dubs, and a easy call, to be honest. You knew one of the dubs was coming in Melbourne for sure. You knew, so we just needed one of two tournaments. When Garver's the best play on the weekend, and there's two tournaments remaining, it's pretty good odds that there's going to be two Gardevoir victories.
Wow, you're doing pretty good here because our next
Yeah.
prediction was how many Dragapults would there be in Top Cut across the 3 major tournaments, not including Thailand, because we assumed we wouldn't have the results from it, which of course we have nothing from. Apparently, we thought we would have at least something, but we've got nothing pretty much.
Yeah.
Um, you said 9, I said 11, and the exact number between Melbourne, Utrecht, and Santiago, even with Melbourne having 0 Dragapults in
Yeah.
cut, there were 9 Dragapults in top cut.
Yeah, that is not how I expected. I thought it would be like a 3-3, closer to like a 3-3-3, maybe a 2-4-3. But yeah, 0,
And then like
5, and 4.
5 in Utrecht. And Utrecht had the smallest cut as
Yeah.
well, with only 8 people.
Hey, we'll take it. That's a dub's a dub.
And then we did pick a player to win a tournament. Yours was Vinny, who finished 41st in Santiago, and mine was Tim Danklin, who unfortunately finished 61st.
What was Tim playing? Was it
Tim
poison?
played
What was
Moon
it?
to
Was it the
Dunsparce.
man?
But
All right.
he tweeted about for alligator. Or
Actually,
like
that is actually go to
handing
the
off for alligator, I guess, to a bunch
yeah,
of
yeah.
people.
The Danklin propaganda was strong at this tournament. Go to Metagame and look at for
Yeah,
alligator's percentage.
yeah,
3% for alligator, right there. What, 19 people above Flareon Noctowl.
yeah. Wow.
Um,
No
the
one made
Danklin
day
prop is
2.
strong.
No one made day
Yeah.
2.
No, it actually had the worst win rate of any deck with 19 or more players playing it. Once I
Oh
saw that,
my gosh.
I was surprised to see it at 3%. I was like, "What was going on?" And then my chat was all like, That's the Danklin prop."
Holy cow.
And then I was like, "This," and then I looked at its winner. I was like, "It's 31%." I was like, "What? Let's see if it has the worst win rate out of all decks with 19 or more decks." And it did have the worst win rate. Actually, Other beat it out at one of the other tournaments with a win rate of like 38% or something like that. But yeah, the Feraligatr not pulling through in this one, unfortunately. I wonder if that is one of those.
Look at
I feel
this.
like
Tim said,
um
I have built 12 for alligator decks, and all these fellas plus one more will be ruining Melbourne regionals tomorrow. They didn't ruin anything. Nothing was ruined.
They ruined their opponent's resistance. That's about the most they did.
Holy cow.
That is a Feraligatr is one of those interesting decks where it won Champions League. Now I put less stock in Champions League, best of one, yada yada yada, but still it won. It was won by a very good player over in Japan as well. Um, I feel like it is one of those decks where it's a hard deck to play. You got to commit a decent amount of time to be efficient with it. But like, it feels like no one even tried to make it work out past Champions League,
Yeah.
right? Or very very little effort was put in from like top level players at all. It feels like top level players didn't even try and put effort into it. I don't know how good the deck actually is, to be honest. I played 0 games with it myself, but so I'm on the list of people who did not try. But
Well, you went 2 for 3 on our predictions this weekend. A rare Azul dub in the predictions category, I feel like. I don't know.
I think
If
we're
you
like 50-50 with these
And
usually.
honestly, I feel like it wouldn't have been unreasonable for you to have picked William to win the tournament. Like, if you had
That was
gone for
one
the
of
perfect 3 for 3, that would have been crazy.
I was thinking about. I always like giving props to William, Petrucci, and crew. I'm always gassing them up a little bit. But they let me down recently by playing so much Charizard. So I was thinking about picking him when I was coming up with a player, but I was like, I think Vinny's a little bit more reliable of a pick right now. I know Vinny's not going to play Charizard, but I don't know that for sure for Pedro and William. But they went to the Gardevoir this time. They're probably a little bit of a safer pick in the future for sure.
Let's hop over and take a quick look at one of the new cards that just got revealed. This will be coming out in Black Bolt and White Flare. I guess one of the two, whenever it comes out here in the US. And it got a lot of people talking for sure. And that is the Jellicent EX. 270
Yeah.
HP, stage 1 psychic type Pokemon, 3 retreat, weak to dark, resistant to fighting, and it has the ability See Curse. As long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent can't play any item cards or attach any Pokemon tool cards from their hand. Then Power Press for the attack, 80 plus for a psychic and colorless. If this Pokemon has at least 2 extra energy attached, this attack does 80 more damage.
Yeah. So the attack is obviously like not great. Obviously one of the partners you could possibly pair this with would be Gardevoir to accelerate extra energy to it.
I've just got to
Um,
say, it is a very good thing that this card does not have a great attack. Like, cards like
yeah.
this need to not have great attacks, because if
Uh,
this card had a very good attack, it'd be a
yeah.
problem.
I will say though, its basic does have a pretty good attack,
Yeah.
which is the Frillish for a single psychic. It does 20 damage, and your opponent can't play any items from their hand. Now, obviously, we have Badoo, but your basic from the evolution doing what your evolution is trying to do, which is item lock. I mean, you're probably still playing Badoo with this deck, but when you open a Frillich, you're probably feeling pretty good for sure. Like I said, Gardevoir could be a partner for this card. I think a big part of this card is that it also stops tool cards, which currently one of the answers for item lock for some decks is TM Evo. This is a stage 1, so getting this out before your opponent can use TM Evo is not guaranteed, but sometimes it's like, all right, play Iono this turn to find my Arvin to use TM Evo next turn, and this would kind of shut down that process to getting to your evolutions, right? Um, so this is going to be it's going to be an interesting. This seems like this card just seems fine. I'm also in my trust the process phase in terms of critiquing the game designers. So no matter what they throw at us right now, I'm always just going to be like, it seems fine. I trust the game designer. So I'm never going to be like fear mongering over any card release for a while, to be honest.
Yeah. The thing with cards like this is like their ability only works when they're in the active spot, and it is also
Yep.
susceptible to um things that would turn the ability off, right? Namely, like Fluttermane, I think would be the big one right now. Someone could push a Fluttermane, turns off this ability, and then now they can use their abilities, right?
Yep.
Um, but
There's a lot
or
of
use their
answers for
items,
this
I should say.
card.
But yeah, I mean, I think as well. Like, I mean, it doesn't seem unreasonable to like build this deck in a way that you can ensure that you will have item lock basically from like turn 2 onwards, because you could build this in like a very consistent, straightforward, like I'm going to start Frillish, attach an energy to it. My opponent gets their one turn of item cards, and then next turn I'm going to bench 2 Frillish, evolve TM Evo, get a bunch of Jellicent in play, no
Yeah.
more items the rest of the game. Have fun.
Yeah. Play like a full only play limit your opponent's outs to getting around the item lock. But yeah, with that as well, like the attack's not that good, right?
Right.
Doing 80 damage. Now triple acceleration energy or ignition energy is coming out, which could get you to the damage boost pretty aggressively. But even then, that's like a one turn to do 160, which is like not that impressive. And especially like doing 80 damage a turn is also not very impressive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I don't know that the tools are there for this to be like, so I mean, think back to the times that like things similar to this have been very good in the past, like Trevenant and Seismitoad EX, right? Attacking. Like those were item lock guys that also were attacking. There was other tools kind of around them to help things out. Like um Seismitoad, you had the Bat Line and Verbank and Hypnotoxic Laser and like ways to boost your damage even further. You could play technically Crowbats and Golbats with this, I guess. We do have those cards available in the Team Rocket set, but then those are targets for your opponent to boss's orders around. Um, and thinking back to like Trevenant, you relied on like some of the times that Trevenant was stronger, was like it was doing a lot more, it was putting a lot more damage in play, like by spreading damage across the board, or like even before Trevenant Break came out, like paralyzing and pushing this Pokemon in the active spot with a Selgor, something along those lines. So um yeah, I don't think that this card seems like inherently broken just right away, but like just knowing how strong this type of ability has been in the past, like there probably will be something at some point for Jellicent DX.
yeah, yeah, and I hope there is. I hope this card finds its moment, in a hopefully not like overly oppressive manner. It would be cool to see a deck like this be like kind of like a Zoroark or Flareon, Flare or EV Box power level of a deck, for sure. If this is like 15% tier one, that's not
Yeah.
as fun. I feel like overall, but if it is like a Zoroark or a Flareon or an EV Box tier kind of deck, then I think that would be like a perfect spot for this kind of deck to slot in and be still enjoyable.
All right. Well, I think it's time for us to get into Guess That Flavor Text. Of course, though, before we do, we got to take a moment to thank our fantastic sponsor, Dragon Shield, for supporting us here at the Uncommon Energy Podcast. Dragon Shield, of course, makes some of the best card gaming and tabletop gaming products on the market. We love them for the sleeves. That's what we use for every Pokemon deck we play. I've been sleeving up so many retro decks recently and using all sorts of different colors of dragon shields, mats, dual mats. I really am a big fan of the, like, I don't remember what this color is called, but it's white on the back. It's a white dual mat. These feel super super nice. I think I might honestly pick up some more myself. But then also just the classic blacks are some of my go-tos. You got your card sleeves picked out for this weekend, Azul in Portland.
Yeah, I do. Gonna be bringing the ambers. I still have my set of the ambers and the amethyst. How do you dude? How do you pronounce it? Whatever it is.
Amethyst.
Amethyst. Amethyst. Got those and bring those with me. And I'll probably bring a third set of the magentas just in case I need it. Probably won't. Should be good with the ambers and the amethyst. But yeah, I'm gonna be packing those up on Friday.
Huge shout out as always, and thank you to Dragon Shield for supporting us here. And if you want to check them out yourself, you can do so by clicking the link in our description. Pick yourself up some sleeves and use our code UEPOD. That's UEPOD. Get yourself 5% off. It helps to support us here as well and gets you stocked up and ready to go through the end of the season. Big thanks as always to Dragon Shield for supporting us here.
Yeah, huge shout as always. Up next, you got guess that flavor text. This week it is Chip's turn to pick a card, read the flavor text, and then I have to try and guess which Pokemon belongs to that card and flavor text. I'll get 4 points if I can get it right without using any single lifeline. The 3 lifelines are what set the card is from, what stage the card is, then read an attack name. Chip recently got 1 point on Citadel, and I barely got away with I barely got away last week with Chip not being able to guess Scrafty after correctly guessing Scrafty
I
and pivoting
had
away.
it, dude. I had it, man.
So I barely got away with that one. But now I'm still in reach. And because of that, I am still in reach. If I get it right this week without using a lifeline, I'll tie Chip up at 33 points, which, even if I am behind, it is still more embarrassing for Chip that he's not further ahead, I feel like.
Well,
So,
don't worry. There's no shot you're getting 4 points this week.
all
And
right.
honestly, we'll see if you get any at all. Are you ready, Azul?
I'm ready, Chip.
Here we go. The spirits it absorbs fuel its baleful fire. It hangs around hospitals waiting for people to pass on.
Oh my gosh. This is a tough one. All right, go again.
The spirits it
Ooh.
absorbs fuel its baleful fire. It hangs around hospitals waiting for people to pass on.
I feel like this is part of the Chandelure line. It could be Chandelure, Lampet, or Litwick. What stage is the card?
It is a stage 1.
I'm just gonna lock in Lampet.
You're locking it in.
I'm locking in Lampet.
No more
Yep, that's it.
no more lifelines. All right. Well,
Nope.
before I reveal the results, we will give a couple more uh lifelines for people playing along at home. First one, what set the card is from? It is from Phantom Forces.
As far as I know, there could be a Chandelure in there.
Read an attack name. Cursed Drop.
That
This is stage
sounds
1.
that's on Chandelure. There's a Chandelure with that attack. I don't know if there's a Lampent though. So this might be a different Pokemon. But I would have
And
guessed Lampent after hearing that for sure.
this Pokemon does have one other attack as well. And the other attack this Pokemon has is Night March because it is indeed
Yes!
Lampent.
Yes!
Oh, for 3 points from Azul. Oh
Oh
my
my.
gosh.
You know what? It's funny. The only reason I got this, we were talking about Chandelure earlier before we started recording.
We weren't.
Oh, why was I thinking about Chandelure?
Oh, dude, we did talk about Chandelure because we were
Yeah.
talking about. There's a new one that just got revealed.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Because I was like, fire. And then I remembered, I was like, wait, purple flames, purple flames. Which Pokemon has purple flames? And I was like, oh, wait, Chandelure.
Dude,
And I was like, well, I'm not going to get.
We talked about that after I had already picked this card as well.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
I
I
was
was
like, I'm
trying to
not
be
getting.
cheeky. I was like picking a card that like you've played plenty of, and I was like, oh, this one might be a little tough. I don't know if he'll be able to get this one. As I was reading it, I was like, this one doesn't seem actually that hard when I like was reading it out loud. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you just locked in the Lampent though with no other hints.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't know, I was pretty confident this wasn't Litwick, but honestly, I wouldn't have been able to guess if it was Lampent or Chandelure. So I knew I had to just use at least the one lifeline to lock that in. But I still would have locked in, even if you had said basic, I would have locked in Litwick anyways. Like I was like, all right, purple flames. It's a ghost. It's a spirit, possessed type Pokemon. It kind of tracks. I know these things about Chandelure for sure. Let's go. It's getting close now. I'm not tied, but I'm only a single point behind.
Oh
We're
man. If
gaining. We're
you
gaining.
ever pass me in this game, we are like deleting the podcast. It's done. It's
I've
over.
led at one point or multiple points.
Well, is that true? Actually,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
probably
yeah.
is.
It is. Yeah. Early on, I was the leader multiple times. We went back and forth a little bit, but then once you gained a lead at some point, you started to carry away with it. Um,
Yeah, the first 8 episodes, we didn't even have the lifelines.
yeah. So we were just straight up guessing without
The
anything.
lifelines definitely helped a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I should say a lot because we're still both pretty terrible at it, but
Yeah, honestly, if you go back
not
and look
this
at
week
it,
though. You got 3 points, buddy. 3
yeah,
points.
feeling good about the flavor text for sure. With that lampant lock. All right. Well, we'll see if you can grow your lead further back once again. It won't be too far to reach, even if you do get like 4 points next week. But we got Portland coming up this weekend, so we should probably talk about that a little bit. The last North American regional, or US and Canada, whatever you want to call it. It is weird that it's called like the region is US and Canada, but then NAIC is North American International Championships.
True.
I think that doesn't track. But last American and Canadian regional coming up here with Portland. There's still some other major tournaments to go out through the rest of the year. There's one more in Europe. There's a lot of tournaments still going on. Oh, also this weekend, there's also the special event going on in South Africa. I forgot about that one.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um, special championships going on in South Africa.
Special
And
championships.
then there is also the Indonesian Masterball League as well. I thought that was next week, but that's actually this week. Indonesian Masterball League is also happening this weekend as well. So there will be some. I won't be restreaming any of the events, of course, because I'll be in Portland. But there's some stuff to watch out there if you're looking to tune in. Portland and Indonesia should have streams. The special event in South Africa, I assume, will not, of course. Yeah, we're getting to the end of the season here with these last couple of weeks.
Well, I think we just got to start off talking about Portland with Gardevoir. Won 2 of the major tournaments this past weekend. It's won most of the tournaments in this current format. Dragapult still has the biggest target on its back. I don't know that that should be the case right now, though, to be honest.
Yeah, I
Like,
think it.
Gardevoir is kind of now. I don't know. I mean, Dragapult will probably still be more popular, right? There will be more Dragapult overall in the event.
I
But
can see it being
man,
close.
Gardevoir, it is, if you look at like what's actually winning these tournaments and what's like aggregating most to the top, it's just Gardevoir, man. Well, I mean, there is Dragapult, but it's like Gardevoir is like leading that charge.
Definitely, yeah, for sure. And man, I don't know. It's definitely interesting. Yeah, I think if this format went on a couple more weeks, and we might see this shift actually fully happen at uh Bologna, or however you pronounce it, Bologna. Gardevoir
Bologna.
might be the most popular deck at that tournament, or we might see the shift of a lot of anti-Gardevoir techs in a lot of decks. Like maybe Dragapult's still the number one deck, but every deck has Jamming Tower. What other counters to more Zoroark, stuff like that happening, where it's like more anti Gardevoir stuff happening. Going to Portland this weekend, I think you're right. Dragapult will be the number one deck still, but I think Dragapult will be the most popular deck. But I think people will understand that Gardevoir is the number one deck. I don't know if we'll see a lot of archetypes shifting around that though, because I don't know when the sentiment in the community has, as it was it this weekend where people are like, oh, finally like, oh yeah, Gardevoir is the number one, or was it like the weekend before? So even leading into this last week, and people understood that, but there wasn't enough time to adjust. And maybe we do see a big adjustment at Portland, or maybe there's not enough time for the adjustment to fully happen. So it might still just be just a really good weekend to play Gardevoir. Honestly, it might still just be
Yeah.
another really good weekend to play Gardevoir.
If you're going in and your goal is to like make day 2 or something like that, you don't have to worry about like playing a deck that beats Gardevoir. Like you can
Yeah,
make day 2 with playing something that loses to Gardevoir.
for
But
sure.
if you want to win this tournament, your deck has to be able to beat Gardevoir and
Or you got to be
probably have
playing
a
it.
good match, like a solidly good matchup into it. Or yes, you have to be playing it yourself.
Yeah, I think the worst you could do against Garver would be like 45, 55. You could take the slightly unfavored. That's probably fine, but you probably want to be looking at being favored. Um, if not 50-50. 50-50, if not favored, should be the goal probably. So yeah, I think Gardevoir is like even going into last weekend, I was like, I think Gardevoir is the best play. So I respected Gardevoir as enemy number one going into this weekend. I think more of the community is going to be doing that going into Portland, or the last weekend is what I was saying. Going to this weekend, I think it's becoming more of a community wide sentiment for sure. people are being like, "Oh yeah, Gardevoir is the deck to have to deal with." So we'll see some adjustments. I don't know how much archetype shifting, like I said, but we might see like more jamming towers. Like one thing I mentioned recently was like double jamming tower and Gholdengo sounds kind of good because it's already pretty powerful up against Gardevoir, but being able to play the first one aggressively to take away like their first Bravery Charm instead of waiting for it as like a counter stadium is kind of cool, and you kind of force them to find the Artisan. So stuff like that is what we might see as far as adjustments go. We probably won't see like Zoroark be like 12% of the meta or something as like a counter to Gardevoir, though. That adjustment maybe could happen a couple weeks from now in Bologna, but yeah, we're towards the end of the format now at this point, obviously. So there's not too many more tournaments to make those big adjustments. But yeah, I mean, I think Gardevoir. I think overall though, Gardevoir is still going to be a really good play. Um, it might not be the best play like it was this last weekend. It might be more on par with other stuff because there's going to be a lot more Gardevoir hate going into this weekend as far as tech card inclusions go. But still, I mean, you can't go wrong with playing it, I don't think.
I think it's pretty definitive at this point that Dragapult has a bad Gardevoir matchup.
Unfavorable. Although I saw some recent discussion on Twitter amongst top players who it seemed like they were kind of working it out to be around like 50-50, and that's kind of what the stats say.
Dude,
But
this is just like
I give it the
all,
edge. I give it the edge.
all these top players are just like so many of these guys are just mega coping, I feel like. Oh my
I do
gosh.
think the non-Dusknoir build. I just don't
I mean,
see
they
how
just
you.
they just skill diff most of their opponents, right? But it's like when it comes down to it and you're playing against Brent Tonneson in top 8, right? Like you can't it's hard to skill diff Brent Tonneson or
Yeah.
Henry Chow, like the players who are the best in the game with this deck.
I think we will see a lot of very good players still play Dragapult. And I will
Yeah.
say, I think the Brent Tonneson build specifically, I think the Azevedo build has a really good Dragapult matchup because you just do not care about Badu as much.
Yeah.
And you can't really, it's way harder to lose the Badu war because you have the TM Evos. So they can't like cheese you with Badu to the point where they just get set up first because you always have Evo to kind of fall back on. Whereas like the Brent build can kind of get cheesed by Badoo, is more likely to potentially get cheesed by Badoo and just end up in a situation where it's like, oh, well, they Badooed me and I can't pop them for alts now. They set up a Dragon Ball in 2 turns and they start attacking and I'm not even close to being set up and I lose. Um, so I mean, with that in mind, I could see people switching to the Azevedo build if they want to try and have that edge against the top Dragapult players. And I do think Dragapult without Dusknoir, I don't see how that deck ever beats Gardevoir. Now, Dragapult with Dusknoir, I think, is a lot closer. I think if you
Sure.
have Dusknoir on your
Sure.
side, you have some kind of extra tempo to create, and you can also like have those games where you like KO double rolls or something, right? Of course, yeah, you can do that with the Halucha, but you can like go KO Curly, a KO roll, stuff like that. So, but yeah, I think Gardevoir's got the edge for sure. Oh, I agree with you. So I don't know where jamming tower. Put a jamming tower
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's got to be some sort of adaptation, right? And figuring out where that adaptation comes in is kind of the big question. Now, like a lot of good players will, like, if Andrew Hedrick is going to this tournament, there's probably a decent shot he's still going to be playing Dragapult, but it may look different, right? Like than what he played
Yeah,
to Atlanta. The meta has changed a lot since the Atlanta Regional Championship. So, um, what kind of adjustments is kind of just going to have to be the big question, and like where can you find ways to like create uh an advantageous position? Maybe like is the Maractus something that's helpful in that matchup? I don't even know if that's like, I mean, I know that's a card you said you've liked a lot in just general in Dragapult, but like are those the type of things like the adjustments that people need to be making heading
I
into
could
the
see it.
weekend?
I could see it. I could actually see it panning out to be decent against Gardevoir as well. Actually, I would go. Let's take a look at Henry Brand's list from Melbourne. Lost the winning into Daichi. So once again, talking about things that would have been cool to see on the weekend. Henry Brand versus Daichi would have been a cool matchup. But the Henry Brand list is pretty interesting. So it is basically Dusknoir no Pult, but has a 1/1 Dusclops. So it's Dusknoir
Mini Polt or
mini.
mini Dusknor.
Yeah, no, it's Pult no Nor but Clops. Um,
That
so the,
that's the official name of the deck right there.
yeah. Has the League HQ. It is the Neo upper build, so no Arvin, no tool cards, has the jamming tower. So something like this, because you don't need a lot. Like just having that one Dusclops can like go a long ways. And I like the jamming tower. I also like the Neo upper because if you establish that first Dragapult with like 2 non-Neo upper energy and it instantly gets KO'd by a psychic Pokemon through Clefairy, you can respond with Neo Upper KO the Clefairy, right? And the jamming tower is important for that, especially if the attack comes from Clefairy, or you want to counter catch a KO the Clefairy, because if you put a Bravery Charm on the Clefairy, It doesn't get KO'd unless you have Dusclops to get involved as well, which is something that Henry plays here. So I really like Henry's list, to be honest. I think if I was playing Dragapult this weekend, this is the list I would look at, but I would put Maractus in there because I've seen too much from Maractus. The card's broken. It's insane. The comeback potential is huge. I love the Maractus, so I'd be looking at like this list plus Maractus if I was playing. I'm not going to be playing Pult this weekend, but that's where I would start. I think you need a little bit.
Gotta adapt. Gotta adapt.
Yeah.
Where does Raging Bolt stand right now? It got the win, right? It had kind of fallen off the mat. Labella wins with it. And then things kind of it was kind of like a question of like, okay, was this just like a one tournament fluke? Is this going to have staying in power? Raging Bolt instantly catapults itself to being the second most popular deck at most of these tournaments.
Yeah.
It also does very well overall on the weekend. Lots of top cuts, second place finish as well. So like I think it's pretty obvious like Raging Bolt is a top contender in the format, whether Azul likes it or not. I think that's the gotta just be the case. And I don't know, where do you feel like it stands as far as a play for the weekend?
So going into this last weekend, I thought it was a fine play. I think you're favored against most of the Dragapult builds, for sure. If they don't have Lux Cape, you're just definitely favored. Most of them have the Lux Cape though to protect that Dracloak from the Baby Bolt on a turn. Of course, at that point, uh, if they find the jamming tower, they still have an answer to that as well. But the thing is, you are in favored against Gardevoir. I know we saw Brent lose to Labella twice at Milwaukee, but the matchup is unfavored for
Sure.
Raging Bolt against Gardevoir. So that's like the big hindrance for Raging Bolt. So I think Raging Bolt's like a fine play. Like you said, you can play a lot of decks and get day two. I think Raging Bolt is even like a contender to make cut, but to win the tournament, I don't think Raging Bolt's a contender to win the tournament overall. The Gardevoir matchup is just if you have an unfavored Gardevoir matchup, like it's like at least 60-40 in Gardevoir's favor. That's like too bad of a matchup to be like a contender to win the tournament. But overall, it's still like a fine deck, fine play. Like I said, Dragapult's going to be the most popular deck. You're favored against Dragapult across the board. Like you come out favored, even if some of the builds are a little bit more teched out for Raging Bolt. So it's still a good play, but it's nothing special this weekend.
What about Joltic Box? Because that's one that it's like kind of catapulted itself up to 12% in Milwaukee, but it pretty quickly kind of fell back a little bit, maybe back to where it's more reasonable for it to be right around just under 10% at all three of the tournaments this weekend. Do you expect anything to change for Joltic Box? It feels like people are already kind of like respecting it in deck building a little bit, like the League HQ's popping up a bit more, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think, and we've seen like the some of the adaptations that people are making in Joltic Box. So there's still a little bit more depth to go with the deck. The Vitality Band, be able to kill the Gardevoir. The goggles is interesting as well for the Raging Bolt matchup, stuff like that. So I am curious to see how far those can actually go, and just how like we see that they were played. We know what they can do. How consistently do you actually beat these matchups though that seemed unfavored to begin with? If those do fix those matchups, like I could see a Joltic Box list playing the Vitality Man and the goggles. Why would you not play both? If one of them fixes your Raging Bolt matchup and the other one fixes your Gardevoir matchup, all of a sudden your matchup spread across the board is becoming way better, right? I actually even like theorized a build of Joltic Box that plays like the picnic basket instead of Clefairy as your answer to Dragapult. There's a lot of situations in that matchup. The Dragapult player can play down to a board where Clefairy can't actually KO um, the Dragapult because they play with a really low bench, and you have to 2-hit KO the Dragapult to win anyways. And then that's when you lose to Dragapult, is because that gives them an extra attack and they, do a 6 prize turn thing, right?
Dude, low key is Picnic Basket just like the broken card?
Also, it's good against Gardevoir
It's
in
pretty
Joltic
good against
Box.
Gardevoir, bro. You just heal that Drifloon, leave 7 energy on it or whatever, or leave a bunch of energies on it, and then go KO something else, and then now those energy are stuck, and
Yeah, I don't
it's
know.
not doing as much damage.
I do like the idea of the picnic basket in there. So I think the Joltic Box has a lot more. After seeing what people came up with this weekend, it's a deck that I'm looking at a little bit further and be like, there might be actually more here that I should look at, and it's definitely a deck that I'm considering for Portland as of right now with some of these new innovations and potentially expanding on that further. So I do think the Joltic Box seems solid. It seems so. I would rather play Joltic Box than Raging Bolt. I would say that going into this weekend, if you feel like you can fix the Gardevoir matchup, which I think it is more fixable for Joltic Box than Raging Bolt.
I think another deck to talk about here would be the Ins Zork. We saw okay results from it on the weekend. It missed cut at Santiago and Melbourne, but there was one in Utrecht in top cut. What are your kind of thoughts on that? I mean, it seemed like it had a little bit of a it was on the upward trend a little bit, kind of similar to Joltic Box, I guess, right? It's probably one of the higher played decks that just like does have a good Gardevoir matchup, right? Um, where else is it coming up short though?
Honestly, it's good against the top end. You're good into Dragapult. Your favorite's Dragapult and Gardevoir. But everything else, that's where it gets tough for Zork against literally every other deck.
Yeah.
Now I will say with that, and this is where skill diff can get involved with a deck like Zork. The best players play Dragapult and Gardevoir, right? The skill difference between those two decks and every other deck being played at a tournament is a pretty big margin, I would say. Like the amount of tier one players, tier S players that are playing Dragapult and Gardevoir compared to every other deck, it's like not even remotely close. So that's where being just really good with Zoroark and knowing all your matchups, even if they are unfavored, if your opponent plays perfectly, all you need them to do is not play perfectly. And if you're not playing up against, if the Hedricks and Henry Chalice are playing Dragapult and Gardevoir, they're less likely to play perfectly. So I think Zoroark is like the best way I can explain it. It's like a good risky call, basically, to make. And I think it would be like a fine play going into this weekend for sure. I don't feel like the meta is getting narrower, so it's not getting like that much better for Zork in terms of that.
It's kind of like
Um,
fumbling your way through all of your matchups up until you hit like the good players playing the good decks and you have the advantage there because
yes,
you've got the matchup advantage, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the way it feels for sure.
Risky call, but could pay off, right?
Definitely.
All right, what the heck has happened to Gholdengo? Because it was the second most popular deck in Atlanta, first tournament of the format. It's just been on the decline pretty much the entire time. It had a little bit of a resurgence with the Dragapult builds of the deck, kind of bringing it back up to relevancy. But like, we haven't really seen anything like that initial Bodie Robinson straight Gholdengo list, right? To kind of keep it elevated.
Yeah. I mean, okay. I think Golden Go Dragapult is not the best way to play Dragapult. I think, or not the best way to play Golden Go. And that is by far the most popular and by far the most successful build that we see from Golden Go. If you look at something like Yella's build that Yella brought to Utrecht, and I like the idea of something like this way more. I think the Dragapult, the Dracloak line is so underwhelming in Golden Go. There has to be something better. The Dragapult line was cool when you needed a really good answer for Cornerstone. Now that that is no longer necessary, there's just got to be something better. It is so underwhelming. The Dragapult line is so underwhelming in Golden Go compared to Revavroom, Zoroark, Pidgeot, Dusknoir, Ceruledge. Like these things have such a higher impact in games. Like there's got to be something better. So I actually think that is part of Golden Go's lack of success. Is everyone is playing the Dragapult build, but I think the Dragapult build is it's not bad, but there's better. There's something that can elevate Golden Go further. And I haven't put too much time into Golden Go recently, so I don't have the answer. But if Dragapult is the best way to play Golden Go, then Golden Go is just not that good of a deck right now. So that's where I'm at with Golden Go. I haven't figured out the secret, but I think a secret exists.
Yeah, I wonder if Gholdengo could be the deck to utilize picnic baskets. Low key.
It
I
is
could
very
see
good in Golden
that.
Go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that something more straightforward seems pretty good. I do think that the idea of Golden Go plus Ceruledge seems pretty cool, right? I mean, it's kind of like an obvious, like, I use Golden Go early and then I use Ceruledge late when my energies are all in the discard pile. And sometimes it can just be that simple, you know? Like,
Yeah.
so that's an interesting thing. I don't know how I feel about the Pidgeot line. To be honest, Pidgeot doesn't feel great in Golden Go because you need more than just like one card. But I guess it's something where it's like, you play Pheasantipity, you draw the 3 cards, then it's like, okay, we can go get one more thing. Plus, we have our Arven for
Yeah.
turn and stuff like that. So, like, I can understand it there. Um, but it just Pidgeot is something that I feel like would be underwhelming in Golden Go overall.
I will say with this build from Yellow as well, there's a little bit more nuance to the Ceruledge inclusion than just, oh, I attack with Golden Go early, I attack with Ceruledge late for anyone who's looking at the list. It's your cornerstone answer, and then it
Sure.
synergizes with Briar. That's the big pull I think you're getting here is that you get that extra prize card in the late game up against stuff like Gardevoir. So I think between the Dusknoir and the Ceruledge plus Briar combo, you can make that happen. Also, that has to be like one of the reasons you kind of need to include the Pidgeot is to find like the Briar late game, those kind of situations against Gardevoir and stuff like that. But yeah, I just think there's better for Gholdengo out there. I just don't know what it is. But I think it exists. And I think that's part of its lack of success. But we did see one Gholdengo make cut overall. We only saw one Gholdengo make cut overall. And based on its play rate, that probably is below average. But I think if you re-simulate some of these tournaments, I've been saying this a lot recently. I think Gholdengo, this is one of those situations where Gholdengo is just kind of getting, I don't know, the short end of the stick. Like it's like if you re-simulate some of these tournaments, I think we see a couple more top cuts from Gholdengo. Nothing crazy, but maybe 2 to 3 top cuts instead of just the one we saw over the weekend out of all 3 events.
Are things in a position where they're kind of coming back around for Tera Box? That was like one of the most popular decks coming into the format. We've seen it kind of fall off, but now we've seen it kind of pick back up a little bit. Daichi just got the top 8 a couple weekends ago. Wancho won the Philippines Masterball League with a Tera Box build. Are things kind of just coming back around for it?
We've been saying this for a while. I think things have been steadily getting better for Tera Box. I think it's still continuing down that trajectory. Gardevoir is becoming more popular, more successful. I think you'd rather play up against that than Dragapult with Unfair Stamp as Tera Box. And then more Dragapults are starting to cut the Unfair Stamp, right? We saw like the Henry Brand build had the Neo Upper Energy, stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's continuing to just get a little bit better and a little bit better, but there's not been like a major meta shift where it's like all of a sudden like every Dragapult player cut Unfair Stamp for Neo Upper. It's like, oh, now's the time for Tera Box, right? And then that could eventually happen if the format went on longer. But I don't think we're going to come around to that kind of point. So I think Tera Box is a solid play. The meta is like getting better for it. It won't become like a great play before the format's over. And yeah, things will just like slowly every week every day things are getting a little bit better for Tera Box. But I think it's going to stay settled around that 5 to 6% for sure.
Is there anything else out there that we didn't mention in kind of these initial decks that you think has a shot to win the event? There's
Um,
the Charizards, the Roaring Moons, the Flareons, Archaladon, your favorite, Terapagos.
there is a couple decks that I am unsure in some of its matchups. The Frostlass Monkey Dory and the um, Moon to Dunsparce. If both of those decks, so Moon to Dunsparce, I'm unsure about its Dragapult matchup, but if it has a good Dragapult matchup, I think that deck's actually pretty good right now. And then Frostless Monkey Dory, same thing, but for Gardevoir. I don't know how its Gardevoir matchup actually goes, but if it has a good Gardevoir matchup, I think the deck is actually pretty good right now. So those
Moon,
are
the
like,
baby Moon to Dunsparce deck.
yeah, the one that Aiden's been playing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that one seems pretty interesting to be honest.
You have a really
And that
good Gardevoir matchup, and you have
yeah.
like a really good Raging Bolt matchup too. Like both those, you handle both those matchups really well. But I just don't know how you handle the Dragapult matchup, how that one goes.
And it seems like I feel like I heard you say that someone in your chat had said that Aiden said he said she said they
A little bit
said
of
that
a little bit of
that it
in the
was
telephone.
a tough matchup for the Roaring Moon deck. Dragapult was a tough matchup.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was what they said that Aiden said. Now, is that true? I'm not sure. But if it is true, I'm at this point I'd be willing to just like take Aiden as word. Now, if Aiden came out and said that he thinks if I heard from Aiden that he thought the Pult matchup was 50-50 or better, Moon to Dunsparce might be my play for Portland, to be honest. I think the deck, because outside of the Dragon Pult matchup is the only one I'm unsure about. Um, if I think that matchup
All you
is
need is
good,
Psyduck, bro,
get the duck in there. Or
or
if
the
the duck
picnic
makes
basket.
does the picnic basket save it? Though that might be the difference maker.
Oh, snap. Let's get it. Yeah, we'll have to see. I think like other things I'd be interested to see. We've seen it popping up a little bit more in some things is like some Charizard variants, right? I know you're not a big fan of Charizard like really at all right now, but Dragapult Charizard I think seems pretty interesting to be honest. And I would really like to see someone kind of like still develop on what John Roberts did at Milwaukee with the top 32 finish with that build. Because I feel like I was thinking about it too. Like if there like you played some sort of slower setup build that was just like super thick Charizard, like even like a 4/4 Charmeleon line into your Charizards, like just very consistently establish a board with a ton of Charizards. Like it's just one of the best attackers in the game, period, right? Um, but
Yeah.
Dragapult might just be too tough for it, regardless of how you build it.
Yeah, I did play a little bit with the deck, and honestly, I was disappointed overall. That's also how I felt about the Zoroark Cyrano build. I tried the Zoroark build with the Cyranos, and I wasn't expecting like anything groundbreaking, but I was like, I thought this would feel better than Zoroark. But I was like, this just felt like Zoroark, but I have Cyrano instead of Arven for TM Evo. And then when after playing this Charizard deck with the Dusknoirs, I was like, this might be the best way to play Charizard. For the time I've invested into it, it just kind of feels like a Charizard deck. Like it doesn't feel like anything crazy. Like it didn't feel like, oh my gosh, this is the best way to play Charizard, and maybe it can compete with Dragon Ball consistently. I'd have to play that matchup. It was just like feels like I'm playing Charizard. That's good enough for me. I'm gonna put this down. If someone else wants to push it further, then yeah, I'll let them figure it out. But was not inspired to be like, oh, this is it. I'm gonna invest some time into this and like really try and make this work. See if there's anything else to do with this style of build. So I was overall disappointed. I guess I would say I didn't invest that much time, but there's so much Pokemon to play, so much Pokemon to watch. I don't have that much time to just play with one deck.
All right, well let's make some predictions for the tournaments this weekend. Well, I guess let's focus mostly just on uh Portland for this one, right? For our predictions this weekend, even though there's a couple other things going on. Let's kick it off by talking about the stadium, the A spec that I think we both seemed like we were kind of a big fan of through the conversation here today. And it's had some top 16, top 32 finishes. Do you think one could break through? What will be the highest placing neutralization zone this
Hmm.
weekend?
And if I knew how good a good Moon Sparce's Dragapult matchup was, I'm gonna go with top 32.
Top 32 is probably a reasonable place to put it, but and honestly, if people are like starting to respect, it might just be kind of getting pushed out a little bit as well. Like if more people start putting the like League HQ in some of these other decks, like the Dragapult, so like it's just another stadium bump, right? Where a deck that didn't
Yeah,
have that many stadium bumps before could see it getting pushed down a little bit. But I'll believe a little bit more than Azul. I'll go with the top 16. That's kind of seems like it's where it's kind of been for a few tournaments now, is the top 16 realm. So I'll give it that. Either in the Moon or the maybe some Brave Soldier will bring the Great Tusk as well.
I could see it. I could see it. If one of them is gonna be in top 16, I would prefer. It would be cool if it was the Great Tusk for sure.
How
Great
many
Tusk.
Gardevoir do you think there will be in cut?
I think there's gonna be a decent amount more Gardevoir hate. It kind of does come down a little bit to what the numbers are, like for potentially like an asymmetrical cut type situation.
How many people are registered right now?
Let's see. Can you still? Actually, I was something I was gonna ask you. Can you still register for it, or
I'll
is
go
it pulled
try.
up? Yeah, I'll pull up this number and I'll run the limitless simulator here real quick. So we got 2,300 registered. So we're
So
looking at
1900, 2000, probably 2000 masters registered,
like 19 show up, right?
something like that.
16% tie rate. Then I usually do zero point 0.4 on the intentional draw.
I can indeed still register for Portland.
Mm. So it looks like X and 2 is going to be top cut, around 8-person player and cut potential for, or actually, hold up. Yeah, yeah. It seems like there is potential for the X1 2 cut, but it's probably going to be X2. X2 clean is definitely possible. With that in mind, I'm going to say 2 Gardevoir players might cut. Nothing crazy. I think there's gonna be a little more Gardevoir hate, but it's still gonna be like one of the best plays. A lot of good players are gonna probably play it. So yeah, two Gardevoirs can cut.
Yeah, 2 is probably the safe bet. Maybe we should have done this one as a over under as opposed to just how many there would be. Um, but yeah, 2 is probably I'm gonna do the rare, agree with you and stick with the 2. I think that's like the spot for it to be for sure. And then finally, pick a player to win. Who's winning Portland this weekend, Azul?
Um, I didn't think about that one for a second, so I'll let you.
Sure. Couple of I don't know how many like what foreign players are coming to it that it would be cool to see. Um John Ing did win the Portland Regional Championships last year, so we could see like a repeat there potentially. Um I have to imagine though that Henry Chow is going to the tournament, and it can't be that bad of a pick with how good Gardevoir is and how dominant he's been this year. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna just go with Henry Chow. Boring
All right.
answer, maybe. 3-time regional champion this season. He's looking maybe to do what only one other person has ever done, win 4 regional championships in the same season, right? And that was,
Yeah.
Jimmy Pendarvis.
Is that also the most majors ever won in a season is 4? How many did Tord I think Tord won 3 when he won the double IC year.
Yeah. 2 ICs,
Um,
2 oh, did he win
it
2?
was 1 regional, 2 ICs. I think he only
I'll
got
look real
3.
quick. You make your
Yeah.
pick and I'll look.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with, dude, I don't even know.
Toward won 2 ICs and then 1 special event.
Yeah, okay. Um,
And then he got 2nd in a regional, 2nd at another IC.
was that maybe the best season of all time is that season right there. I'll go with well, yeah, if I knew some foreign players that were going, I probably would pick a foreign player because that's always cool to do. But Portland, you know what? Portland means there's gonna be a decent amount of Canadian players, right? It's a little bit closer up there.
West Coast Canadians.
I don't know any West Coast Canadians specifically. I'm gonna go with player who is often mistook as a Canadian though. I'm gonna go with Grant Shen. The Grant Shen.
Alright,
I'll
Grant
pivot from
Shin.
there. I literally used to think he was
How many
Canadian.
there's probably gonna be more Canadians, so I'll pick a non-Canadian.
Yeah, but I thought he was Canadian, initially. I think he's been mistaken as a Canadian by more people than me, so close
Mm,
enough, close enough.
no, definitely not Canadian.
No, he's not
Alright.
Canadian.
Grant Shin, Henry
Honorary.
Chow is our 2 picks. There we go. We'll see, you think you got a shot to go 2 out of 3 this weekend as well?
Yeah, probably a decent shot. We'll see. I'm
Also,
not
I'm
feeling that
interested you
confident. I haven't picked
didn't
a deck yet.
I don't feel like it's unfrequent when we do these predictions and you're playing in the tournament that you pick yourself. What, are you just not feeling confident here?
Yeah, I haven't picked a deck yet, so I'm not sure where I'm standing on that. I mean, dude, I actually just literally did just send a message to Aiden because I just want to know what he thinks about the Paul matchup. So I'm gonna wait to hear back from him. If he says the Paul matchup 50-50, I'm probably playing Moon to Dunsparce at Portland.
There
And
you go.
then I'm feeling pretty confident, but
You got your
um,
non-hollow roaring moons.
I don't know. I think I have one. I think from one of our videos we pulled one at some point.
I think we did, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I have one non-hollow moon.
All right, Azul. You got anything else you want to say to the people?
Ah, no. Appreciate everyone tuning in as always, and yeah, send us out.
Thanks so much to everyone for supporting. Best of luck to anyone competing in Portland this weekend. Azul and I will both be there, so we look forward to meeting some of you at the event. If you do enjoy the podcast, please be sure to leave us a like, a review, rating, comment, subscribe. All those things help us out a bunch. And yeah, best of luck to everyone once again. If you want to stay up to date with us, the best place to do it is over on X. You can follow myself at Chipritchy, Azul at Azul_GG. And you can follow the podcast at Uncommon_Energy.
Appreciate the support as always. Catch y'all next Wednesday, 7 a.m. Eastern.